Good afternoon, everybody, to a very special edition of the 13th Dimension here on a Sunday afternoon, Sunday morning for John here. Um, he just woke up almost. And originally, this was going to be a pre record to air on Friday night, and it was kind of a last minute decision to air this live because Friday is Valentine's Day, and I don't think anybody would want to be watching paranormal shows on Valentine's Day. What do you think, John?
Think you still got. Oh, there we go. Um, yeah, I don't think. I think people would rather be spending time with their families and stuff like that.
Yep, that's what I was thinking too, and I am still getting this thing shared out.
Sweet.
So it would just take a minute to get this last round. Uh,
Hello, hello, everybody.
there we go. So, what's really exciting about having John on this show today is this is his first podcast in forever.
Yeah, it's been since probably 2022.
Yeah. So, I was able to sweet talk him into doing the show with me. Took a couple weeks, but, schedules happen.
Let's
Hi,
see,
Tom.
hey, Tom, how's it going?
So, we are going to forego the paranormal side because, well, everybody knows John, the paranormal guy, but he has a different side of him in Second Identity, I can't think of the other words. He is now John, the storm chasing guy. So he comes up with these really imaginative names for himself,
Uh,
but it makes sense. He is the storm chasing guy. He is a storm chaser, and we are going to be talking all about storms, especially considering that we just got an ice storm yesterday, so I think it's appropriate to be talking about this. Only we're going to be talking about a different kind of storm today. Isn't that
a-
right?
Absolutely, yeah, definitely. The weather this year has been really unhinged so far. It's we just had our first basically violent tornado in Tennessee um, that ended up unfortunately taking some lives a couple of nights ago during a tornado outbreak out there. If y'all didn't know, Tennessee is actually the nighttime tornado capital of the United States, and they had a very low end risk that well overperformed at night and ended up dropping 143 mile per hour EF3 on a little town called Deer Lodge,
Wow,
and really
100
crazy to watch.
miles. That's that is insane. It
I think
is,
there were 7 tornadoes in that outbreak, which is crazy for January into February.
yeah, in wintertime.
Yeah,
That's not supposed to happen.
no. I mean, the last time I saw that was uh, 2023. There was two significant outbreaks in the winter. Actually, there was three. I was chasing them. It was January 2nd, 2023, where that one dropped four tornadoes in Oklahoma, and at one time there was actually twins on the ground at night near Lake Eufaula, and that was crazy. Um, and then and then they just kept trickling and going towards I-40, and we were trying to warn the people in the towns like, hey, there's a ongoing tornado situation. This is really bad, and y'all need to put the sirens on. They were completely uh, they did not have the sirens on in those towns, and we got a hold of the mayor of that town, and we're like, we need these sirens on, and they did eventually put them on. So
So,
then you had there was another tornado on January on the Texas Louisiana border in 2023 on January 18th, and then the Deer Park Houston, Texas tornado on the 23rd, and that was really bad. And that went right through the center of southern Houston. So that
so
was a EF3, and that one did a lot of damage.
when you give these warnings to the towns and tell them that they need to turn the sirens on, do they do they heed your warning? Do they listen to you and do it, or do you get some kickback
Actually,
on
I
that?
kind of had the mayor didn't believe that they were like skeptical on what we were saying. I was like, man, there's an ongoing tornado warning to the south, and I was like, do I have? He's like, do you have evidence that there's a tornado coming to town? I was like, dude, we were just right next to the tornado. Like, I don't know how to tell you. Here's a photo, and he goes, oh my god, okay, we're throwing the sirens on. He had to have physical proof that there was a tornado on the ground.
Dude,
I was
look
like, that's
outside.
not the time to be wondering.
Wow, it sounds like all these tornado movies that they put out. You know, there's a tornado
And
coming. No, it's not.
I've been in multiple towns like Rolling Fork, Mississippi in March of last year, which was the strongest or not last year, but the year before last, which was the strongest tornado of 2023. And that one was borderline EF5. It was a 195-mile-per-hour tornado that ripped through a small Mississippi River Delta town at night. And the the public officials there did not repair the sirens, so they never went off.
Oh, I can just about imagine the lawsuits that are coming from that one.
Yeah, that town is going to take a very long time to heal. I mean, there was a magnitude of major problems that happened. Hey, how's it going, Philip? Good to see you, man.
Philip is right that 1 minute of skepticism could have cost a lot of lives.
And that night, it cost 18 people's lives in the town of Rolling Fork, and they literally had no idea what was going on. And just shy of the tornado hitting the town, every storm chaser lost their cell phone connection. So we were going in blind into that town and no way to get a hold of authorities. And the tornado had hit not only the police station, but the hospital in town.
Oh,
So
that's
it
worse
leveled
for
both
tornado.
buildings.
Wow.
And so
So,
storm chasers were the only people that were able to help for the first hour and a half.
so with all of this that you do, I know last year Twisters came out, the sequel to Twister. I watched it. It was really good. I
Oh yeah.
really enjoyed it. Um, how close did they portray storm chasing and what they do to what you guys actually do?
Like a lot of it is really close. Hey Jan. A lot of it is pretty close to reality. They are actually kind of cool that the movie brought in like these experimental radar setups like they had in the movie, phase array radars and stuff like that, because they're actually currently working on stuff like that, infrasound technology, and the probe deployments. That's all goes on in real life. You had the aspect of where you have those tight convoys of cars that roll together in relative harmony, and there is some like chaser drama that goes on with some of the bigger people.
Well,
Um,
there's going to be drama no matter what you get into.
yeah, I mean, there's you have your like bigwig celebrities, like Reed Timmer, who has that tank that he drives. He's a PhD meteorologist that has a passion for storm chasing, he has that big tank that he can anchor into the ground in the tornadoes and stuff. And
I was going to
that's
ask you about that if you guys have that kind of technology now to do that.
yeah. So his vehicle is about $700,000. The way
Oh,
he has it configured, it's completely armor plated.
well, it would have to be if you're going to be
Yeah.
literally sitting through a tornado.
There's actually another one that's owned by a friend of mine, Ryan Shepard. He bought the Tornado Intercept 10 vehicle from Sean Casey, and that one is able to anchor as well.
Awesome. Um, the the technology to be able to predict a tornado before it actually happens, and the technology to dissipate a tornado, like they did in the movie, is that possible right now?
As far as dissipating a tornado, there's nothing that can control the behavior of a tornado. Tornadoes are, right now, we have no way of stopping hurricanes. They have a mind of their own. Um, I've had many experiences chasing in Kansas and Texas where and Oklahoma where I thought I was in a safe position, and that tornado ended up changing a direction, nearly pulling a U-turn and heading right at me. So, I mean,
That's got
there's
to be
times
scary.
I wish you could guide the direction of the tornado away from major populations, but unfortunately, it's not.
I don't think something like that would even be remotely possible.
Yeah, I don't think so either. You can't control Mother Nature.
No, she does what she wants,
Yeah.
and, and it ain't always going to be pretty. So when that tornado changed directions and started headed toward you, um, is it was it like a moment where you froze, you can't do anything, or
I'm
did your
actually
logic kick in and you're like, okay, I gotta go?
I kind of was at a point where I was looking at my buddy that we were sitting on the side of the road waiting to see what it was going to do. And it just kind of stalled. And I didn't take into account that it was coming right at us after a minute. And we almost got hit by it. Like, it was kind of a close call, but last second correction change, we were able to get out of its path, and that was on June 15th. I actually had another circulation develop
Last year?
right on top of us. Oh no, that was on 2023.
Okay. Wow.
Hey, Adrian.
Everybody is showing up except for Nick.
uh, but yeah, we had that second circulation develop right on top of us, and I actually had the little suction vortices, the little mini tornadoes inside the main tornado. So technically, we were inside the main tornado, and I had the vortices dancing around my car. Thankfully, we got hit by it when it was probably at its weakest point, which I still recorded winds of over 100 miles an hour. But it wasn't enough to like toss our vehicles. My car is pretty low profile, so lucky that wind wasn't able to get underneath my car.
At 100 miles an hour, I would think that would be able to destroy buildings.
It's enough. 100's probably enough to start causing structural and roof damage. In order to like start collapsing buildings and tossing cars, I think it's like with an SUV, it might be able to overthrow an SUV at like 110. But I think for like to toss it like a reasonable distance, you need those winds up like 150 to 160 miles an hour.
And at 150 miles an hour, what category is that?
Uh, that would be a EF3.
Okay. And five is the
That'd
highest
be
it can
about 135 to 165 mile per hour winds in
go. Okay.
that group.
Is EF5 the highest, or have they created? new classic.
So yeah, the EF5 is going to be winds in excess of 201 miles per hour
So
with
that's NASCAR stuff right there.
yeah. Those type of winds haven't been recorded since Moore, Oklahoma 2013. Which I saw the damage a couple hours after that one hit when I was younger. And that damage was insane.
So what is the most destructive one that you have seen so far?
Um, Most definitely Rolling Fork, Mississippi, on March 24th, 2023. That one had 195 mile per hour. It was actually Doppler indicated at 225. Had there been buildings strong enough to if there was buildings that were strong enough to be rated EF5, it probably would have been rated at EF5. There was just the building quality wasn't as great.
Okay, probably never expected in a million years that a tornado would hit them.
Yeah, actually, that's in 1971. That town nearly got missed by an EF4 and an EF5 in the same day. Um,
But
we
two
got
separate tornadoes.
two separate tornadoes out of one outbreak.
Wow, hitting us. Gee,
And they missed town. Both of them missed town by about 10 to 15 miles.
That's not that's not a lot considering.
No,
Uh, Even at 10 to 15 miles, can you still feel the effects of the wind from that tornado?
yeah, I was sitting about a mile south of town, kind of just patiently waiting to see what was going to happen. And the RFD, the rear flank downdraft winds coming outside of the back end of the supercell, we were getting hit with 80 to 90 mile an hour winds at that distance. It was probably the most apocalyptic lightning storm I've ever seen, too.
And I've seen some great lightning storms in my day, especially in Nebraska.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
you had lightning hitting the ground about every second. It
yeah,
was it was
that was
nuts.
pretty close. That was pretty close to that. I was actually afraid because I was driving Nebraska. I think I was going to Reno for my annual bowling tournament, and I was going through Nebraska, which is seems like it's the flattest state in all of the mainland, which I like. I
Yeah,
hate driving through the mountains,
yeah,
um, and it was lightning. It was so pretty too. All of this lightning every which direction, but it had me worried that oh shit, am I going to see a tornado
right.
because of how bad it was? Never happened, but I had that in the back of my mind. Um,
Yeah. Like the other big hazard too, like tornadoes like to not show themselves, so they'll throw baseball-sized hail at you. I would say I'm more scared of the extremely large hail surrounding those storms than I am actually like. I mean, tornadoes obviously have their level of scariness to them. But the hail freaks me out way worse. I've had my windshield blown out a couple of times, and it's just not a
oh,
fun experience.
it's not very often that I do come across hail. Um, I do know they hurt.
Oh yeah,
When when I was a teenager, I was playing golf with my dad, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, we had this hailstorm. No tornado, none of that. We just had hail,
yeah.
and we went to go seek shelter under this hut. And right before I got underneath, I got smacked in the cheek by a
Oof,
piece of. Yeah, that hurt a little bit.
jeez. When I was filming the derecho and I'm sure living in Illinois, you're familiar with those big windstorms out there. We had one in Oklahoma. It was the first time I had ever chased a derecho on February 26th of 2023. And this derecho had a little something extra in it. Had all these embedded circulations in them, and they dropped like 18 tornadoes. Um, and we were inside the derecho, and we had the tornado, which missed us by a quarter mile. We were able to see what was happening and saw the tornado coming at us. We were able to drop south at the last moment. It completely rain wrapped until it got right next to us. Um, and this thing had like a quarter mile to a half mile wide debris ball on it on radar, and it was really freaky because that storm was coming at us at 80 miles an hour.
Wow.
Um,
I have seen aerial photographs after tornadoes, and you can just see that path it goes through. It's like it just ripped up the grass and everything.
oh yeah, you'll get if it's strong enough, they'll scour the ground and they'll actually pull the grass and dirt out of the ground and leave nothing but a scar. It's, yeah, it's
Just
horrible.
like in the original Twister movie, it will throw cows around.
Oh yeah, yeah. There's actually footage from I think it's 2018. There was Reed Timber was on a storm in Wyoming that had a tornado on the ground, and it was sucking up cows.
Wow. Did Adrian or Jan ever tell you about the tornado that they went through a couple of years ago?
Uh-uh.
It was I want to say it was after the blow up, and
Gotcha.
or it might have been right before. It was right there in that area. Adrian and Jan were on the road, and they encountered a tornado. They actually called me. Uh,
Yeah.
they called their husbands, and then they ended up calling me. Uh, they pulled off on the side of the road. I can't remember the particulars about it. I do remember getting on my looking at my radar app
Hmm.
and looking in the area that they were at, and there was this big old red spot right where they were.
Oh geez.
Yeah. Well, they, obviously they got out of there alive, but that was that was a hellacious thing. And especially, I could hear the wind.
Yeah, that's
And
crazy.
so, how loud can these tornadoes get?
Yeah.
I know. The only thing I know is from what I've seen on the shows, but they always amp these things up. So, how loud does it really get?
Um, there's some really good footage of the 1999 Moore, Oklahoma tornado, which was also an EF5, and that town has gotten hit by what 52 tornadoes since 1950. Uh,
Shit,
Actually, more than that. I think it's like
in
56 now.
town.
'Cause you had two hit more last year. Um, but you can you with rolling fork, at least in my perspective, we could hear it from a mile away. You could hear that low kind of roar that thing. It's almost like it sounds like a waterfall.
Okay,
But up close, I didn't want to push getting close to that tornado. That thing was incredibly violent.
wow.
I had some friends that were close, and they said you could hear the roar was almost deafening.
So, what got you into this?
I've just had a fascination with the weather since I was a little kid, and just kind of hopping in between living in Texas, growing up, and then living in California. I was always interested in like disasters, wildfires, earthquakes, tornadoes. Like what really got me into the storm chasing thing is kind of like saw the documentary in 2007 about a tornado that hit a small town in Kansas called Greensburg, and that town was 1.1 miles wide, and the tornado was 1.3 miles wide. It leveled 98% of that town.
Ow.
And that right there, like, and the fact that like the fact that like the community was able to recover and stuff like that, and it just always made me want to be able to help people in that way, and ever since I moved back to Texas, I've been really loving chasing again and doing my photography with storms and making content and trying to help warn people live on YouTube that these tornadoes are currently ongoing. Um, got, we had one last year that was really close to my house. It was about 40 miles, which was a little close for comfort because at the time there was another cell that was going right over my neighborhood that had potential to produce. And I was on a quarter mile wide tornado, it down 50 miles away. And so I was kind of wondering if it was going to do the same thing because there had been tornadoes north of where I live, tornadoes to the south, and I was wondering if that one would. Thankfully, it didn't do it. But it dropped like golf ball size hail at my house supposedly.
Ow. You
But
had a
we're helping warn the communities. Thankfully, all those tornadoes missed the populated areas and just went over empty grassland. So that was a that big benefit that day.
when tornadoes form, like what you were saying, it didn't go into populated areas. When tornadoes form, does it have to have an an empty swaths of land, or is it possible for it to form right on a city?
It's possible for it to form right over a city. There's a lot of different factors of what goes into tornado genesis. Topography actually has a lot to do with it, I think, or I'm pretty sure. At least where I live, like the upsloping and downsloping, because we have such a big elevation change here in the Texas Panhandle, coming when that streamline vorticity rolls off of the Rocky Mountains, and then just mixes with that warm Gulf moisture coming out of the Gulf of Mexico and Gulf of America, um, depending on what y'all call it. The you have
Yeah, that is a point of contention. I,
yeah, I'm still not used to it. Uh,
I honestly, I don't think we'll ever get used to it.
yeah,
It, it's been that name for 400 years.
yeah, seriously. But yeah, so you have Gulf moisture mixing with the cold air coming down from Canada, and you have uh, your streamline vorticity that rolls off of the Rockies. You get there's four major factors, but I almost want to say some areas have a fifth factor, and that's your orographic lift off of the topography. And so you get the winds that kind of upslope and downslope through the land, through the elevation changes and the different rock formations and stuff like that, and that will actually enhance the amount of vorticity at the ground level. And all you need is that lifting mechanism, whether that's the diurnal heating coming from the sun or a cold front or something along those lines that ends up getting to lift that streamline vorticity to the ground. And I'm working with a couple of different science projects on documenting those type of storms.
Um, being a storm chaser, do you work with a team or are you a soloist in this?
So I do a lot by myself, but I have a lot of so I am part of a storm chase team called Tornado Tacklers, based out of the United States. Um, and it's a group. I think we're 15 people, mostly Oklahoma, Kansas, um, Texas, and I'm trying to think. I think we have somebody in Colorado, somebody in Tennessee. But yeah, we kind of but I collab with a lot of other storm chase teams as well.
Is this something that somebody be able to make a living off of?
living, I mean, my main team here is the News Channel 10 team here in the Texas Panhandle. I chase for uh I guess their Gray TV Telemundo. So I chase for a major network here, and then I also now have locked in chasing for Cake News in the Wichita area to cover Southwest Kansas. So I expanded my region up into West and Central Kansas. Um, but yeah, you can make money. To make a living is another thing. I kind of do it as like a second job. Um, but I do it because I love it. I love it for what it is. I
Mhm.
like helping people.
Yeah, well, doing this kind of job would be helping people in the grandest way, save lives.
Yeah, yeah. That's kind of the main point of why I love the storm chasing community is um we can all like we have our little we have all of our differences. Everybody's different, but we can all come together to work with one another and help save communities and stuff like that.
Is there? I know that you said that your team covers like several different states, but is it like a national organization, or is there a national
Yeah,
organization
so there
governing
there
body?
is a couple of national teams. Team Dominator, which is run by Reed Timmer, who owns the Dominator 3. He's got a national storm chase team, and they cover anywhere all over the United States. I mean, Reed himself is chasing anywhere from California to uh, North Carolina and Florida, the Plains. I mean, he's on every I think that guy sees an average of like 50 to 60 tornadoes a year. He's a machine.
Can't imagine.
But yeah, he's a full-time chaser. Like he chases for a living.
Okay, I remember, what was it, last year or the year before that? It was, no, last year. It was before one of those big hurricanes that slammed the west side of Florida, I think, going up into Georgia, that really bad one. They were reporting tornadoes right before that hit. And I remember the first thing in my mind is I had no idea that Florida would be able to produce tornadoes.
Yeah, that was I was watching that hurricane come towards Florida, and the outer bands were actually producing like borderline violent tornadoes over and over again. I think there was like 100 tornadoes that rolled through central and southern Florida. I was sitting there, I'm like, man, I picked a bad time not to chase this one.
I
But
don't know.
yeah,
That's a double whammy when you got tornadoes and a hurricane. Um, I I don't know if it was this particular one, but I want to say there was also a report of a like a fire tornado or a fire spout.
uh, the fire in California had a fire tornado.
That's, I would dare say that probably be the absolute. There's Nick.
Hey,
Finally showed
hey.
up after 35 minutes.
What's crazy is like those fires can get so big that they end up mimicking a supercell, basically. So you have enhanced winds turning at different directions. You also have your lifting mechanism from the intense heat, and then you get uh, these smoke billows that build 20, 30, 40,000 feet, depending on how strong the winds are. You can get these like low top supercells that actually are called pyrocumulonimbus. And inside, through that updraft and the turning of the winds and the updraft, you'll get fire tornadoes, which is crazy.
Man, I got I'm going to admit I would never do what you did. There's no way. You call me chicken shit if you want to. I don't care. I am not going to go willingly near a tornado.
Y'all
'Cause
get
I
some
don't
good.
want to get swung in the air.
Y'all
Five
get some
years ago.
crazy tornadoes in Illinois. I have yet to make it up there to Chase. What was it? It was like end of March and April of 2024. Or no, was it 23?
Well,
23.
being in
Yeah, you guys
Illinois,
had a high
Nick,
risk.
Nick knows all these dates just like you do.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, well,
yeah.
okay.
That was wild to
Your
watch.
two
I
fire
actually saw a fire
tornadoes.
tornado during the big wildfire we had in the Panhandle. We had a record-breaking fire that burned 1 million acres in the Panhandle last year, which was crazy.
I never heard about that one.
Yeah, it was burned all the way from just north of Amarillo all the way over into Oklahoma.
Damn, I should have heard about that. I don't remember seeing anything in the news, or not even in the Facebook feeds.
Yeah,
I don't remember seeing anything about that. Wow.
I was actually
Billion
chasing
acres?
I was actually chasing that one. For like 4 or 5 days I was chasing that firestorm.
Wow. I I cannot imagine the heat from that alone.
Oh yeah. It was well the problem is for days leading up to it and during the event we had winds at 70 to 80 miles an hour and just no humidity. And it just created like we were having days and days of just dust storms up here when I first moved here. This was like the end of February of 24. And consequently, 5 days after the fires hit, it started snowing.
Yeah, that'd be the one time you guys would be welcoming snow.
Yeah, when it comes to
Um,
fire zones, yeah, you don't want to be in them. Yeah, I was staying about a quarter to a half mile away from the fires for the most part until I got the second day I was in Fritch when that fire went off, and I literally had houses burning on both sides of me. It was freaking crazy.
of where you living now?
I'm living in the Texas Panhandle now.
No, no. I'm saying where you're living now. You had houses on both sides.
Oh, this not it's not in Amarillo, but about an hour north of where I live in the small town of Fridge.
Okay, fridge.
Yeah, it
I
was Fridge and another little town
see the
called
irony in
Border.
that. Wow. Um, no, talking about the fire tornadoes, and earlier when you were talking about, I think you said $700,000 truck. That's
Yeah,
all plated in it. Is that also fire protected just in case
no,
fire
he
tornado?
mostly deals he mostly deals with tornadoes. Like that's his main game of what that car's built for. He actually intercepted a 158-mile-an-hour tornado in Nebraska a couple of years ago. He got a successful anchor and anchored that car right into the asphalt and let the tornado ride on top of him. It still damaged the heck out of his car.
Oh, I'm sure. Um, how deep would he have to get himself anchored so that it wouldn't pick him up?
Well, so his car's on airbags, so it'll slam all the way to the ground, so no wind can get underneath. And then he deploys spikes into the ground, and I'm not 100% sure on how far they go. I think it's over a foot.
That's not much.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I would have been shitting a brick if I was in that car. I don't. I have a healthy respect for tornadoes. I don't try to play with my life like that.
But you said you've actually been inside of one, right?
By accident, yes. But mine was relatively on the weaker side of the EF scale. I was getting in between 80 to 100 mile an hour winds. Um, but yeah, I did get blindsided in Northeast Texas in 2022. and I had a tornado actually rip my windshield wipers off of my car and completely disabled the windshield wiper motor. This was near the little town of Sulphur Springs, Texas, which is like the far northeastern corner towards Louisiana, like you're going towards Shreveport. And that was part of a major outbreak that day. And I had to still drive home through three other storms with no windshield wipers.
Jeez. Well,
Yeah.
I gotta say, if that was the worst damage you had, you got lucky.
I had a tree branch that was about 3 inches in diameter miss my car by just a couple of feet. Like that was probably one of the scariest moments I've ever had chasing.
Mission that just screams Final Destination.
Yeah, June 1992, Fritch got hit by a tornado. Yeah.
Oh, I thought you said fridge, like refrigerator.
Uh,
That's what I thought. That's what I thought you said.
yeah, they had an EF4 hit in that town. Yeah, that town is probably one of the least lucky towns in the Texas Panhandle
I
between
mean,
the wildfires and the tornadoes. Because they had a tornado last year up in Fridge. It was
I
weak.
would be moving out of that town. Is that the one that get hit?
Uh,
Like
so the most tornado-prone towns that have been hit regularly by violent tornadoes is Moore, Oklahoma, in the South Oklahoma City metro. They've been hit 55, 56 times in the past 60 years.
and they don't think to pick up the town and just go somewhere else.
You would think all of those central Oklahoma towns have been smashed hard, like by a violent tornado. It's like part of me goes, man, I don't know if I'd ever move there, but Oklahoma's a beautiful state. Like I see why people return. The communities there are amazing too.
Well, they would have to be because they got to support each other going through all of these tornadoes.
Yeah.
Wow. Are you familiar with the Palm Sunday outbreak in 1965?
Yes. Loosely, that one happened in what was it, Illinois and Iowa, right?
And it also hit in Indiana too. The reason that I know this one really well is because it's literally just 45 minutes from where I live,
Oh
and
wow.
it destroyed a bowling center during that time. And one of my good friends, he and his father bowled in that center before this outbreak, and they did a tournament and they won the tournament together. Destroyed the bowling alley. Then they had to rebuild, and he had told me a number of times that I would look at that bowling center and say that is not where my dad and I won the tournament. And
Wow.
I get that. So because that was a huge. I don't want to
Oh,
say
Nick did a final count of Oklahoma. Parts of Oklahoma City have been hit 96 times since 1890.
wow.
Yeah,
I
I
can't even,
mean Norman's another town on the I-35 corridor that's been hit multiple times, really bad. Where Oklahoma State University of Oklahoma is, and the National Weather Service, the home of the National Weather Service, as well as the National Severe Storms Lab. They're like that town is like the most weather-oriented town in the country.
is there any place on earth that has never experienced a tornado?
Um, it's a really good question. I know in the United States, everywhere is pretty much seen. I don't think there's been a state that hasn't had a tornado. Uh, I
Including
know
Hawaii?
Hawaii's had land spout or water spouts that have rolled on land. I think they've had tornadoes before in Hawaii. I would have to look up the tornado archive. I don't know if
Nick, I am
tornado.
actually looking at that picture right now, where he's talking about the twin tornado. That brings another question. Do twin tornadoes, do they actually merge like they showed in Twisters? Can they
Um,
actually merge together to make one big massive one?
I've never seen that happen. Usually, twin tornadoes form out of. Usually, when you get twins, it's usually a process in the tornado genesis where one mesocyclone, or yeah, one mesocyclone is kind of falling apart, and the new because there's still so much energy left in the atmosphere that second mesocyclone will develop, and you'll get twins on the ground at the same time. It's basically a recycling process. I have never heard of twins merging and becoming one big tornado. I think that was really fabricated for the movie aspect of it.
It's pretty cool in that movie, I gotta say. But so I just wondered if like I said, they amp these things up in the movie, so it makes me wonder which ones are actually real, which ones are not.
Well, see, Pilger did the recycling process in 2004 in Nebraska, or 2014, and that tornado, there was actually twin EF4s on the ground that had winds well in excess of 200 miles an hour.
Wow.
Um, and there was another case of it, the Hessen twins in Kansas, uh, back in 1995. That was an incredibly violent year. Um, but these systems, you would have the one tornado cycle out, and the as the storm cycled out, that tornado ended up revolving around like a satellite around the new tornado. And I'm sure it could have
Oh,
enhanced the shear locally and made it more damaging.
that would be a sight to see.
I would have, I
A
would die to
tornado
see.
orbiting another tornado.
That happens a lot with very strong to violent tornadoes. You'll often have satellites that develop in and around. That's why you got to be on your six watching what's going on behind you in those situations. Because you can have tornadoes that pop away from the main vortex that'll orbit the main tornado.
I had
Um,
I had no ideas. Ladies and gentlemen, I am getting an education here today.
Yeah, it's scary. It's scary when it happens. And then you also have multi-vortex tornadoes where you'll have mini tornadoes inside of the main tornado vortex.
it inside the tornado.
Yeah, so you'll have these little suction vortices. Most of the time, multi-vortex tornadoes are on the the higher scale of the tornado setups. But yeah, you'll have these little inner tornadoes that will rotate like kind of Fujiwara effect inside of the main tornado. And if it's not condensated all the way, you'll be able to actually see those funnels. One big example of that was 2013 El Reno had a had the mini tornadoes were the size of like stovepipes and wedges inside of that tornado. That tornado was 2.6 miles wide.
Did you say miles?
Yeah, a tornado is 2.6 miles wide,
Shit.
and you had half-mile tornadoes embedded in it, swinging around, and it ended up killing 4 storm chasers.
If that's all it killed, wow, that's a tornado that massive. I would expect 100 people being killed.
Yeah. Well, thankfully, it was over. It missed the main part of downtown El Reno by just a couple of miles. But what happened is everybody who was on Highway 81 at that time, in its path, basically got tossed off of the road, including the Weather Channel team.
Uh,
It picked up their car 3 feet off the ground and rolled it about 100 yards off the highway in a
so
fortified
in El
Chevy
Reno,
Tahoe.
where is El Reno?
Just west of Oklahoma City,
Okay, okay.
about
Because
40
I
minutes
heard
west.
the Reno part, and I'm like, no, not Reno, Nevada,
No.
because that's where I'm going
Um,
next year. Um,
oh yeah, Jackson, Mississippi in 1966. Yeah, that was. Yeah, but that whole like west central part of Mississippi is a major tornado magnet. Same with northern Alabama. There's a town called Tanner, Alabama. In 1974, they got hit by two EF5s during the super outbreak. And then in 2011, that super outbreak dropped another one in part of the Hackleburg Phil Campbell EF5 rolled right through the town of Tanner. Um, so yeah, that town's probably almost as unlucky as more Oklahoma is.
have you seen the movie Night of the Twisters?
Yeah, that's actually based off. That one was based off of that one in Nebraska, wasn't it?
No, no, Night of the Tornadoes. It's uh,
Because they made one that was based off of the Lubbock 1980 or 1970 tornado. Uh,
here we go. Uh, yeah, Night of the Twisters.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I remember watching that, and kind of going back to how things are now. The CGI in that movie is terrible.
Yeah, it was based off of event that happened in Nebraska. Don't remember. They had like a really violent outbreak.
It was Grand Island, Grand Island,
Grand
Nebraska.
Island, Nebraska.
Yeah, it was actually based off a book of the
Yeah.
same name, 1984, by Ivy Ruckman, which is a semi-fictionalized account of that outbreak.
Yeah.
John Snyder starred in that movie because I remember watching that movie when they first aired it on TV, um, and that was also right around the time that Twister itself came out.
Yeah.
I think so. Just on those three movies, Night of the Twisters, Twister, and Twisters. Which do you Okay, well, no, I don't want to say that because Night of the Twisters is actually based on the actual thing. So let's go with Twister and Twisters.
Okay. Out of those movies, realistically, like there are aspects of realism, but there's also a lot of like Hollywood stretching the truth a little bit too much in them. But they're mostly enjoyable. But with Twisters, I like what they did in incorporating like real terminology, like when they're sitting at that hotel going over the HRRR weather model. That's what I do every time that there's about to be a tornado outbreak. I look at those models. HRRR is a high resolution rapid refresh model. I use it all the time.
Okay, so would it be fair to say that Twisters is the closest to getting it right?
Yeah. Twisters was really good. Like Into the Storm was more entertainment, but was yeah, that one was kind of a mixed bag of if I liked it or not. Hey, how's it going, Chantel?
Haven't seen
Chantel.
her in a while.
Um, but yeah, that I would say Twisters, the new Twisters movie was probably the closest to reality.
Yeah, I really like that movie, and here in the last few years, I have been becoming more and more of a fan of these disaster movies, uh, Twisters, 2012, San Andreas. I really like those. I don't know why. Maybe I just like seeing towns leveled. I don't know. Um, but the special effects that they put in these movies are awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
They look
The
real.
it blows my mind how far we've come in these movies, and I'm like, wow, that looks pretty legit, actually.
Yeah.
Like, this is kind of shocking. I
I,
like
I,
how they showed how the unpredictability of like getting close to tornadoes and how fast that they can switch direction on you at the last second. That happens more times than you could imagine.
yeah. Well, yeah. You found out firsthand on that one.
Oh, I've had that happen multiple times. It was just one time I was not paying attention to my surroundings. I had a little lapse in judgment because I was talking to another chaser buddy of mine on the side of the road, and it all of a sudden I saw the whole thing just starting to descend on top of us, and I was like, "Yeah, we got to go, or we're gonna get killed."
With all of that, you've sent me a whole bunch of pictures,
Sweet.
um,
Okay.
and I would like for you to describe. Uh, let's see. Let's start with this one. This is one that you sent me. This looks more like the Aurora Borealis, but that ain't happening in Texas and Oklahoma.
So that was on October 10th of last year. That was actually filmed in the Texas Panhandle.
Were you able to see this with your own eye, or did you have to use special?
100%. Yeah, you could see it. The auroras actually became overhead at that point.
Wow.
I had never seen anything like that in Texas. Like, I was absolutely mind blown.
I would have been too because that's something I've always wanted to see a borealis, and to be able to see something like that in person is like a dream. But I never would have imagined it would be where you're at.
So that was a G4 solar storm. I think it was a X 1.5, or it was darn near a G5, like your peak solar storm where you could see it all the way to Mexico. And in fact, people saw it in the Bahamas. Uh, and that was a photo that I grabbed. So I actually have an app that I can now use where it shows where the city lights are not. And so I use that to drive about 2 hours north of where I live, just north of Dalehart, Texas, and there was zero light pollution, and I was just in absolute awe.
It does look like there are some city lights, but
Those were actually vehicle lights.
they are.
Yeah.
Oh, I would not have guessed.
There was like one house a mile within a mile of that location.
Okay. Wow.
It's open grasslands there.
And being out there in this area, be able to see all these stars, that's just picture perfect, really.
Oh yeah, that was actually captured off of my GoPro.
Nice. It almost looks like something is forming right here.
Yeah, that was awesome. But yeah, we had this like giant green band of solar lights go right over the top of me, and I was just like blown away.
Wow. That's amazing. It really is. Okay, let's see if this works. Okay, I guess not.
Hello, everybody.
Yeah. Well, I was hoping to have something to where I could be able to go from one picture to the next. Okay, let me see here. Can I? Okay, yeah, I can go back and forth.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
So
So
where are
that
we
shot
at?
that shot is a supercell that I took in Turkey, Texas. So that's about an hour and change from my house. Uh, that was on May 1st of last year. That one ended up producing four tornadoes.
Wow. Because I can see, unless it's just simply the distance, but this one here looks like it's about ready to dip down, unless that is just the far
Yeah, there was a big wall cloud on that storm that was rotating pretty strongly.
Now, what about this one here?
So that is going to be your inflow tail. That's going to be drawing winds into the storm. It's a main component of um, pulling in unstable, moist air into the other parts of the storm and keep it going for hours and hours and hours.
And
It's,
it's amazing how incredibly dark it is over here. This has got to be rain
that was all rain and hail.
and hail. Wow.
So that would be technically your forward flank, or that would be your rear. Oh, no, that'd be the forward flank of the storm. So that would be where a majority. That's what they call the core, where you have a majority of your high winds and your large damaging hail. That was actually dropping 3.5 inch hail at that time.
And it looks like you have an authority figure right here
Yeah,
overlooking everything.
yeah, that was a beautiful storm.
Okay, let's see. No, not. Why is
Oh,
that here?
I was like, back to paranormal, huh?
Yeah, that's actually a case I'm working on. Well, will be working on it. Somebody had sent it to me. Okay, I guess we're just gonna have to do it this way.
So that was shot in Tahoka, Texas on May 28th. That's just south of Lubbock. Uh, that one was a supercell that was in the process of dying after like 5.5 hours of chasing it and found this really cool abandoned building, and I thought it'd make a really cool shot.
It it actually looks pretty close to that one a cappella album that I did a years
Oh,
ago. Yeah, remember because you submitted a
yeah.
design on that one.
Yep, I remember that. That was what, 2021? That was a while ago.
No, that would have been,
Is it 2020?
I want to say 20. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been like 5 years. Damn.
Yeah. Because it was a choice between the one that you made and the one that this other guy made, and I'm thinking, oh, this both were so good. It was so hard to pick.
Well,
Okay,
you
so
guys want to see something? I do, before we conclude this live stream today, I can show you all my Storm Chase vehicle as well.
okay, yeah, do that before I bring up the next picture.
Let's see if I can bring this up here.
Okay,
So,
I can't hear you, John. I cannot hear a single thing you're saying. Well, folks, it looks like he can't hear anything that I'm saying. I will
so
ask. Hello? His mic is not muted, folks. So something must have changed in the setting when he switched camera angles, or he will disappear.
Hey,
John, I don't know what's going on, but it's not working very well. Hey, can't hear you.
That's weird.
Go back inside. Can you hear me? Can I hear you? Nope.
Hey, can you hear me?
Can hear you now.
Okay, cool. I don't know what happened.
Yeah,
Really weird.
the whole time you were showing the car, I couldn't hear you say anything.
That's so weird. Um, but yeah, so Unit 2, this is my fully functional storm chase vehicle.
There we go.
Um, I've got 360 cameras. This is a 2017 Honda Civic, and me and my buddy developed this rack to fit cameras. I got a light bar for driving at night, so try to get some more visibility. I've got my my radio antenna here to be in full communication with friends and teammates that I have in the field. I've got inboard computers, inboard Wi-Fi, you name it, emergency kits.
So you got a pretty penny into this thing.
Yeah, I've got a lot of money invested, and a lot of this I was actually able to build very cheaply. I did a lot of this shit on a budget. Like I think like the most expensive parts of this was the actual like rack part. This was $400. We got this PVC for very cheap.
Yeah, you can just get that stuff at Menards and Lowe's and Home Depot.
The cameras I picked up there, they're Wi-Fi based home security cameras that we rigged to the car. And each one of those is $45 each. The light bar I picked up for $40 that was off of a totaled vehicle, and it works perfectly.
Now, do you have to have a special kind of license to be able to drive around like with all that?
A special kind of license.
Yeah, so like for truck drivers or bus drivers, you got to have a CDL, or if you're driving a motorcycle, you got to have a specific kind of license for that. Do you
No,
have to have one for that kind of equipment?
no. I'm perfectly fine here because I'm media to run emergency lights and stuff on a Class C license. But I have certifications that allow me to do what I need to do.
Okay.
I have a CERT certification for search and rescue, so that allows me to have emergency lights and stuff, and I can uh, help respond to disasters if needed.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay, let's bring up the next picture.
Let's see. Okay, so that was actually on that same day as that one that you showed with the house.
Okay.
That was in Levelland, Texas, near Lubbock. Beautiful storm. Classic supercell. Not a tornado producer, but it did drop 4-inch hail for about 4 hours.
Oh, that's a lot of hail.
Yeah, it was punching holes through people's roofs.
Gee.
Yeah, it was actually chucking baseballs 3 miles outside of the core. So I was trying to not get too close to it. I was standing about, in that shot, I was standing probably about uh two, about a mile and a half, 2 miles away, uh, and just using a zoom lens.
And I can see what I think is a house here, a couple of silos here.
Yeah, it was mostly all farmland out there.
Okay.
You have a lot of abandoned buildings out there too.
All right. Yeah. Let's.
I actually believe that picture was taken in Witherall, Texas, just outside of Levelland. Okay, so that was that other supercell shot, that one near Turkey, Texas. This was the tornado that was generated from that. Uh,
This looks like a like an eel
yeah,
or a snake. You got the eyes. You got the wicked shaped mouth. Yeah, it looks like it's getting ready to come down and gobble something.
it
And
was
looks like
fairly weak.
a mountain
Um,
in the
you
distance.
could see it picking up dust underneath. Nothing really came of that tornado. It looked impressive for a second, and then it just died out.
Okay. Wow.
We actually had tornadoes on both sides of us. There was a storm that had merged with the main one, and both of them were producing. And so I think it got choked off by the other storm as it began to merge. But those storms were stationary and ended up dropping 9 inches of rain on the town of Turkey that day.
9 inches of rain. That is a
O-
lot of water.
Over half a foot. It caused a flash flood emergency.
Oh, I believe that. Wow.
Yeah.
So it is possible for storms to cancel each other out.
It can, yeah. Sometimes you can get there's you either get a constructive cell merger, where the storm absorbs and actually makes the storm stronger, or you get a destructive cell merger where it actually they kind of cancel each other out.
Wow. Okay, let's see. We got two more here.
I think it has a lot to do with like how and where in that main storm it impacts as it merges, is how it can. There's a lot that goes into it, but yeah, it can either do really bad things or it can kill that storm completely. So that one was Silverton, Texas, June 2nd last year. That was 60 miles from my house.
That distance.
Oh no, no, I was a half mile from it.
Okay, I was going to say if that's 16 miles away from where.
No, but at that time, that storm was about 60 miles from my house.
Wow. I'm really curious about this little notch right here. What is that?
Um, it's a good question because at the time there had been twin tornadoes and I had shot it, but I think that's more of a. I mean, that could be absorbing the old mesocyclone at that time. I'm
Well, it
not
does look
entirely
like
sure.
two different things because this here is just solid black, and
Yeah.
you can see where it's merging.
Yeah, so you had two mesocyclones rotating at the same time. There had been one tornado that had just lifted prior to this one, right as this one was on the ground. uh, actually condensating. There was another tornado that was lifting, and I think it absorbed it. And that tornado was pretty strong. It just luckily hit nothing. It was rated at EF1.
It looks like is. Oh no, this oil. I'm guessing this is one of those oil wells.
Yeah, there that whole area is like oil, really small little oil fields.
So so would I be correct to say that this is going in this direction and this is all of the stuff that it kicked up?
So that tornado was actually going left to right. It was
Going
going
this way.
due east, yeah, and so that dust was being thrown in front of it. So on the left, you'll have something called RFD. On the back side of the hook, they're the circulating winds that go around the tornado. And that those forward flank winds were helping to generate a lot of that loose dust. At that time, we had a really bad drought ongoing.
Oh,
So those tornadoes were able to throw quite a bit of dust.
all right. And then we got one last picture. I say this one last for a reason.
Cool. See it. Okay, so that one was on May 29th. That one was near the town of Seagraves, Texas. It was just basically uh, probably one of the lowest precip supercells I have ever seen. But it was chucking golf ball size hail.
Okay, so when I look at this picture, I'm thinking I'm looking at a cloud. I don't see anything that give me an indication that this could cause a tornado, even though this right here looks like it's so low.
Yeah, so it did have a mesocyclone on it. There was rotation. The whole updraft and updraft base was rotating. But it just wasn't strong enough to actually do anything, thankfully. But it was able to produce a lot of lightning. Got some interesting shots of that, and it was just kind of a nice sunset storm. It's not often you get to see the entire inner structure of the supercell because usually it's surrounded in precip.
And you can see the curvature
Yeah. So
right.
that's actually the back part is actually the anvil at the higher levels of the atmosphere, 40, 50,000 feet up,
Yeah.
fanning out.
This isn't like a cropped out picture from another picture. Is it like you were you
No,
able to get a much
that was just shot off of my cell phone.
okay? Man, because I would love to see the entirety of this whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, like I was right next to it, and so like I wish I had gotten shots a little bit behind on the road. But I was uh I was just kind of like sitting there drooling of how beautiful this storm was at sunset.
It is no question about it. That's that's really something. These are amazing pictures, and you know the fact that with what you do is more times than not, I would imagine you only have a split second to start making decisions, right?
Yeah, all kind of depends. Usually, I spend a lot of time mapping the areas out, or I've just been to them so many times that I'm familiar with the area. I'll be looking at road closures that morning of and deciding which areas. Like usually that morning of, I have a pretty good idea if there's going to be a tornado outbreak, where it's going to happen, and so I have like a couple of towns within that vicinity mapped out of like how quickly we can get out of there and start looking for escape routes. And usually I try to get into that town a couple hours before the storm comes in and kind of set up and observe. And I'll try to stay ahead of it for the most part most of the time.
Has there ever been a time when you're looking at something, you go, nope, and go right, go away?
Yeah, there's been times where I'm like, I'm I see what the storm behavior is doing. Like that Turkey, Texas one was really weird because you had three areas of circulation developed right in our vicinity. Um, and we were it was kind of like any one of these could produce a tornado at any moment. Um, and we were just kind of waiting patiently. And then we had one drop to our left, one drop to our right, about a half mile down the road. And we're like, yeah, we need to get out of this situation because eventually, if this keeps following this pattern, there's going to be a big tornado that develops. Because most of the time, when you have a lot of these smaller tornadoes drop in a sequence in the same storm, eventually you'll have that much stronger tornado develop. Not every time, but it happens more times than what people think.
Now I know that you were saying on from an earlier storm that four storm chasers were killed in it.
Mhm.
Have you ever lost anybody that you know personally or were friends with to a storm?
Um, I've never lost anybody personally to storm. I've had good family members and friends lose their houses, but I've never had a direct fatality of anybody that I know personally. I've had some storm chaser friends of mine that have been impacted and almost killed, though, on numerous occasions. Back on that Rolling Fork one, that 200-mile-an-hour tornado in Mississippi, I had a friend named Marcus Reynolds, and he was actually hit by that tornado. He got trapped in a cul-de-sac trying to warn people and couldn't get out of there. And the tornado picked up his car, 96 Forerunner, and threw it into a baseball field 150 yards away. He survived.
Wow, it's it's amazing hearing stories of all the damage that these tornadoes cause, but yet I also hear stories of an egg carton being picked up and put down somewhere and not a single egg was broken.
What was wild last year, they had a tornado in Sulphur, Oklahoma, just south of Oklahoma City Metro, that struck at night and damaged the whole eastern half of the town. That town has been hit multiple times by some very strong tornadoes as well. Um,
And
and
the
there
interesting
was
about tornadoes at night is that you can't see them.
yeah, I do a lot of chasing at night. Like I do, the only time you'll see the tornadoes through the lightning flashes, but you got to be stupidly close to be able to see them sometimes. And there's just times that aren't worth it.
It, saying stupidly close that, I just got a chuckle at that one.
I actually almost got. I had a tornado in Norman, Oklahoma this year that crossed 50 yards ahead of me at night. And as soon as I saw the power flash, most people didn't know what was going on, but I knew better. And I saw the power flash happen in front of me to my left. And then all of a sudden, the lady in front of me just kept going, and I'm honking at her to stop, and she didn't get the hint or whatever. She was just freaking out, and the tornado ended up hitting her, blowing her windows out, and I had to go make sure she was okay. That was on April 27th of last year.
Was she okay?
Yeah, she had a couple of cuts on her face and stuff. Her house was later impacted by another tornado in Ardmore, Oklahoma that night that almost flattened their house.
Wow.
But luckily her family was okay.
Now, when an outbreak happens and you're at work, do they let you leave to do this, or is
For the
it
most part, I'll let my boss know a couple of days ahead, and I will switch schedules with another coworker if I'm not on. I also go more closer to part-time, usually when I do the storm chase season. And then I subsequent it with some other work that I do to be able to meet my bills and stuff.
okay? Well, I gotta say this has been an amazing show.
Yeah, it's fun, man.
Yeah, and we actually got more than the hour that I was hoping to get.
Absolutely.
So that's good. I thought for sure we lost you um, when
I
you
was
started.
kind of worried about that too. I was really hoping that uh, that didn't happen, and thankfully it didn't.
Yeah, well, you did disappear for like 5 seconds.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, you did disappear. You were off the show, and then you came right back. Um, so I will wrap this up with one final question. On your car, it says, "In Dorothy we trust."
And that's a nod to the Twisters movie.
Is it?
Yeah, because I actually named my car Dorothy Unit 2, which was one of the unit pods for the probes that they deployed in the original movie. It's
Uh,
also kind of a Wizard of Oz tornado. It all ties
I
into
never
the
even
movie
thought about
Twisters.
that one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because I actually have a decal of Dorothy and Toto on the car.
I didn't even notice that.
Yeah,
I saw in Dorothy We Trust, and then above the door, I think it said like Dorothy number two, something like that.
yeah, Dorothy Unit 2. In the original 90s Twister movie, they had these giant pods that were on the back of their trucks as they were racing towards tornadoes. And they were Dorothy Unit 1 and Dorothy Unit 2. And my other buddy has a Civic like mine, but his is red and he's Dorothy Unit 1.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah,
That's really awesome. Well, John, I got to say this has been an amazing show. Thank you so much for being on. You gave me and the audience a real education on this stuff. A lot of I did not know.
absolutely. Well, I'll definitely be sharing some more Storm Chase content with y'all this season. And make sure to check me out live on YouTube at the Storm Chasing Guy. I'll be chasing all season long. I've got a couple of chases on there for the blizzards that we got here in the Texas Panhandle last month and out in New Mexico in November. So yeah, definitely check it out, and we're gonna get on some more storms.
Okay, I'm
Hi,
looking.
everybody. My name is Joe.
Okay, I just subscribed to you from
Sweet.
the Things Network page,
Oh yeah,
and
appreciate it.
I am also going to put the link to your YouTube page in the comments where it's going to show up 9 different times.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's kind of fun seeing it jump up that way. So
So I've done
so
like
go subscribe to him, ladies and gentlemen. Check him out.
absolutely. Thank y'all for having me. I appreciate it, and can't wait to see you guys this storm season. And Nick, I'm sure I'll be talking to you very shortly.
Oh, I guarantee you.
I got to
um,
get Nick on a chase.
I'm sure he would love that.
Oh yeah,
I know he would love that.
yeah. He would be geeking out big time.
He would be geeking out, but he would also be doing. I don't know if you've seen that picture that Tom and Nichols put up of him on the roller coaster and the way that his face looks. He he would have that look on it.
Heck yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, John. Ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be the first. This is the first of three shows I'm doing today, so I'm going to be tired. Um,
I hear you.
stay tuned. In a couple of hours, I'll be doing the March on Wrestling with Donald. Don't know exactly what time, but it's going to be within a couple hours. I need to go do something first after
Yeah.
this show, and then I
Yes, Nick,
will.
I would love to do a show with you talking about the tri-state tornado.
Uh, Nick, have him on Nick Files.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I'm down.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for playing along. This has been a great, great show. John, again, thank you so much. And let's not make it another 3 years before you get on to the show. Okay?
No, I've done doing that. Well, I'll definitely be a guest on your show more often for sure.
Yeah, we'll get you on Supernatural Talk sometime.
Okay, cool.
But it's just a matter of your work schedule because the way that you have told me, it seems like your work schedule is a little wonky.
Oh, it's not just a little wonky. It's like foo bar.
I know exactly how that is.
It's never a consistent schedule, no matter how hard I try. I thought I was finally making a change at that place until the last 2 weeks, and we had four people quit back to back to back, and I was just like,
Oh, wonderful.
yeah,
I know exactly how that is because the place that I was working at, it we basically had a revolving door.
yeah, yeah. That's how my place is. Like, it's a lot of kids, and they don't have a really good work ethic at times. So
I know all too well many people.
the
All right.
struggle is real.
Well, John, thank you so much for being on here. It has been an absolute pleasure finally getting you onto a podcast. We will make sure that it's not 3 years before it happens again. That's for damn sure. And everybody
Absolutely.
out there in the audience, thank you so much for playing along and stay tuned for Marks on Wrestling and Paranormal Experienced later today. So until then, be safe out there this weekend. If you're in northern Indiana, Ohio, Illinois, be careful out there with all the ice and the snow that we have just gotten. But until next time, I don't know when 13th Dimension will be on again, but it'll be after Valentine's Day, I'm sure. So for all you couples out there, have a good Valentine's Day, and we will see you guys later. Have a good day, everybody.
All right, y'all. Have a good one.